What's going on, everybody? It is
CJ, the smart guy.
Dr. Jamar Montgomery, and it is Genius and Smart Guys. So we are just so glad to be here with y'all for another episode. Once again, we're doing something a little different because most podcasts, they go on and on, but we figured that it'd be good to give you a limited podcast series of talking about crypto, culture, tech, and politics. All things that are so relevant right now that our community needs and the world needs. So, without any further ado, what's up with you, CJ?
Man, everything, man. Living life. Happy to be out here in Washington, man.
Right, you said something in the car. You were like, "Hey, man, the air quality
Bro,
is."
the air quality out here is magnificent. So, for those that don't know, I'm originally from Southern California. LA's air quality, terrible. Moved to Houston, air quality,
Terrible.
worse.
Terrible.
Dallas, worse. So, I just moved to Virginia, Richmond, and it's great. But coming out here to Washington, I'm like,
Yeah.
makes my lungs really happy.
Yeah, it'll do that. It'll do that. And then being able to go like on a hike, on a run. So this can't be your last time coming out here, man.
I won't be.
Good. So, man, we shot the first episode and we kind of gave people an introduction to who we both were.
Yep.
But I think it's time to go a little bit deeper.
Okay.
While we're going deeper, I saw some interesting posts from you, Brad.
Okay.
You were backstage in Detroit?
Yeah.
With Harper.
Yes, sir.
Right? Who's running for, no, he's not running for Senate anymore.
Nah, so he was running for U.S. Senator of Michigan.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he lost. He lost to Alyssa Slotkin, but it was a great experience.
Okay, so he lost, you're saying that he lost the primary?
It was a primary, correct, the Democratic primary.
Okay, all right. Okay, what motivated you to get involved with his campaign first?
Yeah, so I met Hill on the Black Bitcoin Billionaires platform on Clubhouse.
Okay.
Clubhouse, for those that don't know, that was like a public speaking audio app that we used during COVID, during the pandemic, because we couldn't go outside. And so that was our way of communicating with each other. And so Hill came in and he was talking about his experience with Bitcoin and how he thought that Bitcoin was a value ascending asset, meaning it's an asset that goes up in value over time. And he explained that as Black Americans, we haven't really had access to these assets, whether it was stocks, because you have to be an accredited investor, or real estate, because either you have to have a certain credit score, you have a certain amount of capital, or they just wouldn't let you buy the house, period, back in the day. And so he was saying that Bitcoin is one of those things that you can get into, there's no barriers of entry. And he was saying more than likely they're going to try to put barriers to entry. So we have to create our own tools and our own devices to be able to navigate through that.
Yeah.
And when he said he was running for U.S. Senator, I was like, oh, awesome. So I went to Detroit when he announced it, and I went back to support when he was running so I could help volunteer and be out there on the ground floor and actually do some work. It was my first time ever doing anything political for any campaign.
Interesting. Okay, now, this wasn't his first stab at political office, was it?
I believe it is. He graduated law school with Obama back in the day, but then he went the actor route. So I don't believe he's run for any public office before, but he took the actor route and he actually helped Obama. He actually supported Kamala Harris when they were in their younger days because he was the actor. He was the one who actually started making the money first. And I didn't know all this stuff until later, and so he had supported them. And so this time around now he's running. And so he has a lot of political insight and understanding that I have no idea about.
Yeah.
But according to the Democratic rules, you have to win the primary first before you get that type of support. And so if he had won the primary, he would have probably got Obama's support. But just due to the rules, he was like, well, we're going to wait for you to win the primary, which made me feel some type of way because on the Republican side, Donald Trump is consistently calling who should be winning the primary and who should be voting for. But that's what made Obama president. That's why he won. He follows the rules. That's why he's been so clean cut. So I can't get mad at that. But I did feel like,
this is your boy.
This is your boy.
Y'all went to school together. He helped you on your campaign.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you
Yeah.
return in the favor?
You already were president of the United States. It's not like they're going to stop you from being the president. And it's the
Right.
DNC's rules. It's not necessarily like a U.S. government rule. It's a political party. You've already been the president, but that's not my call.
It's interesting seeing how those things work because you're. I could only imagine what that conversation was between President Obama and Hill Harper may have been, right? And maybe the conversation went well in terms of Hill understanding that, all right, this is what it is, but it leans to the fact of someone following the rules versus somebody making a personal decision. Mm-hmm. And I know when I ran for U.S. Senate, I ran as an independent.
Yeah, talk about that.
Man, okay, so back in 2020, I ran for U.S. Senate in Louisiana as an independent. And that was a very conscious choice for me running as an independent because I didn't want to be bound to any party's particular rules, right? Going through the process and all of that, I didn't want to be, if I was going to do something, I was going to do it on my own merit. Yeah. I was going to do it my way. Yeah. But then you look at how people will declare themselves to be Democrats, declare themselves to be Republicans, and you really don't get any help from the party until after the primary.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And then, even then, if it's not a race that the Democrats are really concerned about winning, it doesn't mean that you're actually going to get the support. Wow. Because I saw that happen in Louisiana with a congressional campaign that I helped out. Mm-hmm. So I worked on Gary Chambers.
Yeah, I know Gary Chambers. Yeah. Not in real life, but like I know who he is.
Yeah, I know. I've known Gary for about 11 years.
Okay.
I brought Gary up to Southern University. I brought Gary to Southern University Law Center to speak. And man, yeah, I know Gary from the Rouge Collection days.
Yeah, he's the one who had that. Okay, I want to make sure I get Gary Chambers correct. I believe he had two different political ads. I think one, was about smoking marijuana.
Yep.
And I think the other one was about the Second Amendment. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was the Second Amendment. He was like, I'm not going to get rid of it because he had like a picture of the KKK coming and he had his firearm. I believe that was him. If it
no,
wasn't.
I don't remember that one.
Okay.
That was Jerome Davis.
Okay, apologies.
That he said, because when 30 racist Democrats come to your thing, you're going to need the full 30. Hey, I would say that's the hardest, that is the hardest political ad I have seen in a while. Yeah. Because and the funny thing is on my mixtape when it comes out, I'm going to use that as I'm going to use part of his thing.
Your mixtape. Hold on, don't just skim over that. Your mixtape.
Yeah, man. I'm putting out a mixtape. I'm putting out a mixtape, so that'll be coming soon. I'm still working on some of the songs. 2 of them are already done.
Okay.
One of the songs is called Genocide Joe, and it's been on my Instagram. You know, it's
I've heard that.
It's been on my Instagram. So, and another one was called Thank You Lord.
Okay.
So, but I have a few others. I got like 3 more songs to finish before I put it out. But it'll be out soon. But anyways, I worked on Gary Chambers' campaign. I developed about like 60 to 70% of his criminal justice platform.
Okay.
So militarized police, that was me. On militarized and protest policing, that was me. The smart funding of police, like that's me. So when everybody was talking about defund the police, I was talking about smart fund.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can you describe that real quick?
Basically, instead of defunding the police, start funding the police based upon the areas where you want to see impact with the police.
Okay.
So if you're going to say that police stop crimes, right? They stop burglaries or they do things, there needs to be metrics in place that show how police intervention is good for society.
Got you. Okay.
Right? So if you are, let's say you're in a high crime environment, right? Some of the things I don't want, look, mental health crises. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I don't need my police there because they don't necessarily have the training, right, or the patience to handle that. maybe I would want some more mental health professionals. So the budget that when instead of having a police officer or multiple police officers having to go handle that, maybe just one or two police officers handling that, and you provide more services, mental health services,
Yeah.
and you empower those people,
Yeah.
right? And dealing with law enforcement is always kind of tricky because I'm not the one to say that we don't need police, but I am the one to say that our police needs to be held accountable.
Correct.
And that, if law enforcement is a service, then I want good service, not bad service.
Yeah.
Right. So I ran for U.S. Back to what I was saying about.
It's important though.
Yeah, it is. It is. I ran for U.S. Senate as an independent, but what was funny was that it was Democrats. It was Democrats that I had some of the greatest friction from. Mm-hmm. Funny story about Gary. Gary had pledged his support for me in my U.S. Senate campaign because he was one of the first people that I had told that I was running for U.S. Senate. He had pledged his support for me. And he was like, yeah, man, we got to get you in there. Fast forward to, that was like July 2019 kind of time frame. Fast forward when now during its actual campaign season in July, August of 2020, I'm like, hey, Gary, and I'm hemming and hawing. Now all of a sudden I don't, you know what I mean? Like I'm not getting the phone calls back. Well, the mayor of Shreveport ended up jumping in the race in July of 2020.
And the election would be in
November.
Oh, wow.
The last second, right?
Yeah.
So Gary was trying to broker a meeting between me and the mayor of Shreveport, and I'm like, the mayor's got my number.
Yeah.
I'm one of the most accessible people in Shreveport. If you don't know who Doc Montgomery is, you're sleeping under, at least in Shreveport.
Yeah.
So he brokered a meeting. He drove up from Baton Rouge and sat down, met with the mayor, and he's like trying to get both of us on the same page. And I'm like, they were actually trying to get me to drop out the race.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you need to be having this conversation with the other Democrats,
Yeah.
not me, right? So it's just crazy to see that, in those kinds of environments, it's why are you coming to me,
Yeah.
right? So to bring that back to Hill Harper is I could only imagine the kind of conversations that went on, right? And this is somebody that I feel was genuinely trying to do something for the people.
Correct.
But there's a lot of machinery in the background that you have to deal with.
Correct.
That most people don't understand until they run for office.
And that's some of the stuff I somewhat learned. And so not all of this is firsthand. This is also secondhand, listening and just observing. But from my understanding, so in Missouri, you had Cori Bush. She was a House Representative that came into power after Michael Brown had passed away. He was shot by the police or whatnot, and she's a black activist. She came into play. And from my understanding, Wesley Bell was paid a large sum of money to quit his U.S. Senate race and to run against Cori Bush. He took the money, ran against Cori Bush, knocked her out. Then you also had Jamal Bowman in New York, House of Representatives, and he started calling for a ceasefire, and lo and behold, he got knocked out in the primary. And then that brings me to Hill Harper. From my understanding is that he was offered the same type of deal as Wesley Bell was to run against Rashida Tlaib, which is a House of Representative in Michigan, but he declined it. She's like one of the only Palestinians in the House of Representatives, probably the only one in the entire Congress that I am aware of. And so he refused that. I respect him greatly for that, because you don't want to knock out the only representative of Palestine in there, especially when there's a war going on. Her voice should be heard. And so I respect him greatly for that. But by doing that, the consequence was, okay, you don't get that funding, and now you don't win your primary, because he would have probably have won House of Representatives. But that's not the point. The point is to make sure that you're living according to how you want to live internally, and still trying to make the progress and to, try to make the community as best as you can, but not by quote unquote selling your soul. And so I started looking at all these situations, And it brings me, because I'm a CPA, I follow the money.
Situations, what you mean situations?
Jamal Bowman out,
Gotcha. Corey Bush,
Corey Bush out,
Hill
Hill
Harper.
Harper not getting there.
Yeah.
And so most of the time in Black America, when we talk about politics, we're always talking about Republicans versus Democrats.
Yeah.
These are 3 Democrats that couldn't even make it to the Republicans.
To their primaries.
They couldn't make it out their primaries.
Yeah.
And 2 of them were incumbents, meaning they had already held office the prior years.
Yeah.
It's very rare that you see somebody who owns the office not even be able to make it
To the
fight.
primary. Yeah.
Correct. That was,
Yeah.
and so I checked the numbers and I checked the money, and lo and behold, most of the money is coming from a political action committee called APAC,
Public Affairs Committee.
Public Affairs Committee. What was I calling it?
Political Action Committee.
What's the difference?
There was a rebranding that happened a number of years ago. I'm gonna let you explain what APAC is, though, real quick. I'm gonna get there.
Well, from my understanding, it's a group that funds certain candidates. And so I went to their website and they are 266 and 0, meaning all 266 candidates that they've tried to put into office this year, they've been successful and they've been defeated 0 times.
And that's just this year, right?
That's just this year. And
What does it stand for?
I'm not sure.
American Israel Public Affairs Committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause I know they did it. I know they had done that rebranding, but I just know it's APAC.
Yeah.
AIPAC, and that they're 266 and 0.
This year.
Yeah.
That's wild, man.
I've played baseball, never seen a team go 162 and 0.
Now, is that 266 and 0 for?
I believe that's senators and representatives across both parties, because they put in candidates sometimes in both parties. It's not just Democrats.
Do you realize that's over half of the
Correct.
entire legislative body of the United States?
Which would explain
federal
why
government?
we keep giving all this money over to Israel. And I don't really understand the whole Israel-Palestine. I don't understand everything, but I do know 266 and 0. Like basketball, they play 82 games. There's never been a team to go 82 and 0. Baseball, 162 games. There's never been a team to go 162 and 0. So the concept of going 266 and 0 to me is wild.
Yeah.
And so when I look at that and I look at like Hill Harper and I'm like, so I was out there and I saw how many Black Americans in Detroit, which is Wayne County, were voting for him and the excitement that it brought to not win in Wayne County in your own district, not to mention the state.
Yeah.
I was taking them to the polls.
Yeah.
I saw the excitement to not win in your own. That's where it didn't resonate. It was like, how? So Michigan has, I believe, 1.5 million Black Americans in the state, and not one representative, not one House representative, not one senator, not a governor, nothing. Like, I'm originally from LA. We have representation. Maxine Waters we've had others as well. Houston, rest in peace.
Sheila Jackson.
Yeah,
Lee.
Sheila Jackson Lee, as well as we've had Al Green. In Atlanta, you've had Senator Warnock. So other cities that I've been to, we've had representation. Whether it was at scale for the population is another story, but we've had at least 1 or 2 representatives, something.
Yeah.
Michigan had 0. And that was wild to me. I mean, Rashida Tlaib, she's Palestinian, but she's not a Black American, so I'm not including her in that. But that's just wild to me that 1.5 million people and not one representative that looks like you. And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to support Hill. A, he's pro-Bitcoin. 2, he's pro-Black. 3, I think his heart's in the right place. And so I just went out there and I learned a lot, but unfortunately the big money won.
What'd you learn?
I learned about the big money. So like he had this shirt that said Hill Harper versus the establishment. I understood what the establishment meant after that.
Yeah.
Because even people that I talked to that didn't vote for him, they were like, well, I just never heard his name. I never heard anything. And I'm like, you didn't hear his name? And I'm realizing like the amount of money that gets put into these elections is high. I remember I watched a video. It was Kamala Harris speaking years ago when she was running for U.S. Senator of California. And so this is years ago. This is before all this inflation. She was saying it cost her $2 million a week to run these ads. And I was like, if it's $2 million back then, it's probably closer to $4, maybe even $5 million now. And so in Black America, we're looking at Hill like, you're rich, you're an actor, you're a millionaire, you have a mansion. And it's like, I don't know his net worth, but to spend $2 million a week, I don't think that the acting
How
business
long
is
you gonna be rich?
And so when you talk to other politicians, they're like, you never use your own money for these elections because it'll drain you to go in debt. And so a lot of stuff I'm learning how much money goes into these elections.
Bruh, they talked about I know it was whispers and talks about it during the Obama's first campaign for president that they were nearing $1 billion. And when it came to Trump and Hillary, they was like, it's $1 billion, I believe, on each side, if I'm not mistaken, right? So just the amount of money that goes into politics, people really don't understand. And people are like, well, where's this money going to? Like, most of it goes to marketing.
Yeah.
Everything that you're doing in politics during the election is all marketing. What do I mean? You got to buy business cards. You got to buy push cards, right? The cards that you hand to people. You got to buy signs. You know what I mean? The yard signs. You got to buy big signs. You got to buy billboards, right? That's just physical media. You got to get people knocking on doors, because that's a part that a lot of candidates are missing, is the importance of knocking on doors. But you got to have volunteers. You got to have paid staff, right? Paid staff to coordinate the volunteers so that they can go and knock on doors so people at least know who you are, right? Then if you're running social media ads, right? Well, it's not just one ad that you're running multiple ads. And what do I mean by running multiple ads? You're running ads that are specifically targeted towards certain demographics, right? You're running ads on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, right? All these different, and all of that costs money. You got to have people who are developing the ads. You got to have people who are producing, right?
Yeah.
So when people talk about politics and they want change, everybody wants change until it's time to pay for it.
Say that again. That's
Everybody
real.
wants change until it's time for change to come out their own pocket.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To pay for it and to make it happen. So, when you see your politics, this is one of the reasons why I'll never forget this. People will talk about politics, but ain't voted, aren't voting, or haven't donated.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first moved to Shreveport, just fresh there, right? It was during the election season, and it was around the time where they were electing the new mayor, right? And I was talking about politics with this older lady. Now, mind you, I'd only been there maybe about a month, right? Month. And I was giving my opinion. And the lady asked me, she was like, do you know who your commissioner is? Do you know who your city councilwoman is? She asked me, where do I live? And I told her where I live. And she asked, do you know who your councilwoman is? Do you know who this? And I was like, no. And that was the end of the conversation.
Wow.
Like, how are you going to talk to me about politics and you don't even know who the closest person to you in this?
That was eye-opening, wasn't it?
It was eye-opening. It was like, it made me...
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, don't talk to me if you don't even know what the hell is going on. So that really inspired me to then I started teaching political science at Southern University Shreveport.
Okay.
Right? So from teaching political science, and I taught my class like a seminar. I'll be releasing my civics course by the time that this episode comes out.
Make sure y'all cop that too.
I'm telling you want to learn politics? The same course that I taught to my students, it's got more updated information, but the same course that I taught my students is what I'm providing to the people now.
Okay.
Right? To really understand how their government works and how they can interface with their government. When you educate people on their government, then they don't have an excuse to not be involved.
Correct. They got to participate.
Right? You have to participate. So it's like when I hear that people are telling you that people didn't know who Hill Harper was, right? You will be, it's really eye-opening to how siloed people really are.
Correct.
And just in trying to survive and just trying to live, trying to raise a family, that you're not even looking out So the only way in which you would know who I was is if I literally came and knocked on your door,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
but once again, all that costs money, big money.
Because one thing that I'm realizing is that I'm on the internet. I don't watch TV.
Yep.
But there's a whole generation that's all they do is watch the TV.
And which generation is that?
The older generation.
And who votes at the highest?
Most of the older people.
Right. Do you know that young people like 18 to 35 are like the largest voting bloc?
And probably the least amount percentage-wise voting.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So you have to target the ones that are already voting. And the thing is that when you already know that you're fighting an uphill battle and you have 1.5 million black Americans in Michigan, and I believe he said only 10% vote. So that's only 150,000 votes.
With a famous actor, right?
With a famous actor who, I mean, he's trying. And it's like very eye-opening. And you start to really see the political game. And then you get to, because then you start looking at the black Americans who don't vote. And it's like, well, how can I blame you when you're going against a 266-0 team? Like,
I put it like this: just because you know you're gonna get in the ring, just because the odds are stacked against you, don't give you the excuse to not get in the ring.
Understood.
But I can understand. I say that if we kept that kind of attitude with as black folks, then we're just laying down.
Yeah.
We're just accepting whatever abuse. You know what I mean? We're just accepting.
But then on the flip side, right? Because I don't know how much money was donated. I was on the floor. I wasn't doing all the
You can
numbers.
find out.
I'm sure I could.
FEC.gov, Federal Elections Commission.
See, man, look, this is the guy.
I know this because I ran for office.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and that's what happens when you get involved.
Yeah.
Right. My goal has always been to create more informed and more involved citizens.
Yeah.
Right. And the more informed that you are, the more involved you should become. Mm-hmm. And then the more involved that you are, the more informed you'll be. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, go ahead, brother. I cut you off.
Yeah, no worries. I was just saying, like, so the way I was conceptualizing this was, and these are just random numbers, I have no idea. Let's just say he raised $20 million. And let's just say 15 million of that came from black America. Like I said, these are all complete fake numbers. I could understand if I was a black American, I donated, and then to not win, it almost feels like a wasted amount of money just gone. Your hope, your energy, your time, your money, and for nothing. And if that happens consistently, it's almost like conditioning where it's like, well, here we go again. And I could see some of that defeat on some of those people's eyes after literally the polls closed, and within like 15 minutes, they basically said, oh, it's over. And it was like, we worked for how long? And within 15 minutes the polls closed, you're already calling it. And it was like, how can you call that? And lo and behold, it was right as time went on, but it was like, it doesn't feel right. Like, it just didn't feel right to just, like, it wasn't even like till midnight. It was like.
Sounds like you might be empathizing with President Trump.
One thing so I'm part of the Virginia Blockchain Council.
Okay.
And one thing that they talk about, not just there, but in a lot of places, is having votes on the blockchains to make it more transparent.
I gave a presentation in Davos on that. I gave a speech on that.
And we will definitely talk about you in Davos a little bit later. But I think that what comes with voting on the blockchain is also a digital ID, which then that starts going into privacy. But it's one of those things where it's like, what are the transparency with the actual votes? And how do we really know? Because I'm not in all the processes. Think about it. This is just one state. You have a country full of votes. Who's fact checking the fact checkers? Who's checking the checkers? Who's policing the police? Like, who's the one that's really making sure these things work? And it's not necessarily that I'm sympathizing with Trump, but the ideology of.
I just said empathize.
Or empathize.
Not sympathize.
Got you.
Just understanding where he's coming from.
Correct.
Right.
Because it's like, let's really check this. And I definitely understand what he was saying because he had received more votes.
And I was poking fun. It just made me think of how you were saying about like that conditioning, right? Mm-hmm. and it's almost being like conditioned for failure,
Correct.
conditioned to accept failure.
Mm-hmm.
I understand us as black folks being in the position that we're in, but I don't excuse us utilizing that as an excuse to continue to stay in the same position that we're in.
Correct.
And is it hard? Yes. Is it unfair? Yes. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Because you pay your taxes every year,
Every 3 months.
right? Every 3 months. You pay your taxes, and what do you get for your taxes?
Roads.
Right? But we donate to campaigns. Well, did you go out and knock on doors? Did you go and tell somebody?
Most people don't.
You get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
so every time that we put the problem on somebody else, every time when we don't take ownership of a particular problem, or we make something somebody else's responsibility,
Yeah.
we can never control it.
Correct.
We can never control it. So it's like, yeah, I donated money. Did you knock on doors? Did you tell somebody? Were you talking about this particular person every day?
Yeah.
In every conversation that you had,
Yeah.
were you maximizing the ROI on your money? Because now technically you're an investor in this campaign.
Yeah.
So as an investor, wouldn't it be better for you to let everybody know so that increases your chances
Yeah.
of your candidate winning? And why are you donating? Because you know that donation gives you access.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to go up there, right? Because I was like, I
You
definitely
wanted that access, huh?
I agree with your sentiments. Like, I got to get involved. I can't just root, because so there's 100 U.S. senators.
Yep.
And from learning also in this campaign, I'm learning that percentage-wise, there's been more black U.S. presidents than black U.S. senators.
Yep.
And in my mind, I'm like, how can that be? There's only been one black president. And then you look at the amount of senators, I think it's been over 2,000 U.S. senators, and I believe it was like 12 have been black. And when you look at that percentage-wise, it's less than 45-ish presidents, and you've had only one be black.
Yep.
And I'm just like, this is outrageous.
Yep.
And so when I'm hearing about that, and I'm hearing he's pro-Bitcoin, and I've already worked with him before. We were working on something called the Black Wall Street Wallet app, which was a Bitcoin where you could buy and sell Bitcoin on the app. And so it was like, I'm seeing him and I have to go participate. I don't want to just root from Virginia or from Texas. I want to actually go down there and be a part of it. So I didn't knock on doors, but I definitely drove people to the polls.
Yeah.
I definitely donated some money, some time, some energy, and it was 100% worth it, the learning experience. But I want to win next time.
Absolutely.
I don't like going against a 266-0 team, but now that I know that it's 266-0, I now know, okay, this isn't, okay, I donated a week of time. Big deal. They're 266-0. You got to donate some years. You've got to go full throttle. And I think Bitcoin is one of the things that can actually push us into that next sphere of being able to get into politics. And they call you the crypto politician.
Yeah. Yeah. I was called the crypto politician, the Web3 statesman. Yep.
Yeah.
I have been calling for crypto companies to be lobbying. I've been preaching that for the last 5 years.
Because we're in 2024, so since 19?
5 years.
Yeah.
That's the reason why FTX was successful, was because he was literally, I read a statistic that 1 out of every 3 representatives had received money from FTX.
And if y'all don't know FTX, that is more than likely, I consider it the biggest fraud in American history. I consider it bigger than Enron. I consider it bigger than any of those other Ponzi schemes. I consider FTX as the worst.
Sam Bankman-Fried needs a mud hole stomped into him. Sam Bankman-Fried, otherwise known as SBF, who was running FTX. And FTX was an exchange that failed as a result of mismanagement and fraud on the behalf of SBF.
Shout out to Bitcoin Zay. I don't know all the details, but I definitely understand that Zay connected a lot of dots with that, made it known. And then CZ, which is the CEO of Binance, he wound up bankrupting them by making a couple moves. And I
Yep.
believe a lot of that came from Zay's tweets and him pointing out certain connections.
Yeah.
And it was crazy because then CZ wind up having to he was forcibly had to step down from Binance, and then they
He was
jailed
locked
him.
up here
Yeah, they jailed him.
in Seattle.
Oh, he was jailed in Seattle?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is he still, or is he out now?
I think he had to do what, 4 months, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So, and I think Fed time you have to do 80% of it.
Yeah, which is crazy because he didn't commit fraud. He didn't, they said it was, he violated SEC laws or something like that. But either way, my feelings are that it wasn't jailable time, but
They want you, they'll find a way to get you.
politics is real.
It is, man. It is. And that's one of the reasons why I was advocating for more crypto companies, more crypto projects to be donating to their local politicians. I was at the Atlanta Blockchain Center 2 weeks ago, and I was saying about like, yo, if you need help, reach out to me because we can get policy written, and it really starts with your local city council person, your local commissioner, and then moving up to your state legislators. Because if you pitch blockchain as a job creator, right now the conversation's different. If you, that's one of the reasons why I like what the Atlanta Blockchain Center is doing. Once again, shout out to the Atlanta Blockchain Center. Always here. Congratulations to Anthony, who is the president of I Stand With Crypto.
Okay,
Of the Atlanta chapter. You know, connecting with your local politicians, but how dare you talk about all the money you're making in crypto and your politician doesn't get any of it?
Correct. And then beg for your politician to do you right.
To
by
do
you.
right by you and help you out, and you're not helping your politician.
Yeah. I learned a lot of this from the movie Godfather.
Yeah.
There was a scene in there where they were like, he had his pocket with all the politicians and all the judges. And it didn't click when I was younger, but now that I'm starting to understand how this is playing out, I'm like, oh, yeah, you've got to be able to have some money for the newspapers and the TVs and your politicians and, all those types of things, whether it's legal or illegal, like that's irrelevant. You trying to have power, money, respect, well, you have to actually pay people to do certain things because, hey,
money answereth all things, brother.
In the world, that's what runs things, and now money's evolving. So that's where I think Bitcoin is going to play a huge role because this is an asset that we don't have barriers of entry into, and I want to keep it like that.
We do have barriers of entry, and it's ignorant black folks thinking that it's a scam. I have a big issue. I have a real big issue because there are people, and I'm sure that you've experienced this too, people who you have been preaching to about crypto and Bitcoin and this, that, and the third, that you've been preaching to them for years, that come back 3 years later saying like, man, I wish I would have listened to you. Oh, you mean to tell me the person that you compliment about being smart, that you didn't listen to them? Oh, they literally call you CJ the smart guy, and you're not going to listen to the smart guy. Oh, you're not going to listen to Dr. Jamar Montgomery, 3 degrees, started college at 11 years old. You're not going to listen to me? You're not going to listen to me, and now you want me to feel bad for you? So I'm not saying that black folks are ignorant. What I'm saying is that when black folks are ignorant, like we miss out on so much, and it's because we aren't willing to take the right kind of risk. But you know who is willing to take risks? Older black women.
Yeah.
In my experience, I have found that older black women are most receptive to blockchain and crypto.
So I think it was less. So I have a similar experience, but I think for them, a lot of times it's been support, meaning it's like, okay, they call you Dr. Montgomery. I see your degrees. I don't really understand it, but I'm going to support you in what you're doing. So here's X amount of money, and if you make something happen with it, I'm really happy. I feel like I've had a lot more support than I have people just,
Okay, I can concede to that. I'm gonna push what my experience has been, and outside of, you're right. you're right that it has been a lot of support. What I also saw was when I was working with Dr. Boyce on the Black Crypto Club.
Okay. Yeah. 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 I get that.
You know what I mean? So
They're,
they knew Dr. Boyce more than they knew me.
yeah.
I just happened to be one of the instructors.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have a point there. You have a point there.
Yeah. And I think everybody wants to be a part of a community. And I think when they start seeing, oh, this is actual community and not just a get rich quick scheme, a lot of them start to get involved. So like with the Black Bitcoin billionaires, like when they saw, oh, it's so many people, it started to grow like at rapid speeds. And we have Black people of all ages across the country, but it was also because it was a community environment.
Got you.
We were all talking about it. We had experts, we had doctors, we had lawyers, we had a CPA, we had so many different people that were on Clubhouse that it was like, if you did have a 60, 70-year-old that could not conceptualize Bitcoin or anything like that, we had classes that were like Bitcoin for boomers. And we actually had older Black women, shout outs to Granny Crypto. We had people that were breaking it down to them. And so I think that community aspect is huge also. But I think what you're referring to is a lot of people who have negative communities. If you're hanging around people that are negative and you're hanging around scammers and you're hanging around people who aren't thinking about building, they're thinking about being destructive, when you hear about Bitcoin, the first thing that they're thinking about is scamming, versus somebody who's around builders and a community that's trying to build. It's like, oh, well, how do I, build? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that's part of my experience because Black Bitcoin billionaires, when it was on Clubhouse, that was magical. Yeah. That was amazing.
Yeah. All right, man. So that was a good segue talking about, I get upset with my people because I believe that we can do more.
Yeah.
And I don't, what you believe determines how you act and how you respond, right?
Correct.
And I believe that my people are the smartest people in the world. I believe that my people are the most diligent and strongest people in the world, but we just don't act like it. And so I want us to act like the smartest, strongest, most diligent people in the world. So that's why I hold us up to such a high standard. But, we're talking about advocacy. We're talking about advocacy, and I'm going to go back to your post, man, because like I said, I've been watching what you've been doing, and I've been loving what I've been seeing. First we had Harper, and now I'm seeing you speak at the Urban League in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about that, because when I think of Urban League, I think of like bougie Negroes. That's what I think of, and nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I have a little bougie in my blood as well, but the Urban League is not one of those organizations that you immediately think of, at least in my mind. Mm-hmm. When I think of civil rights, or when I think of organizations, I'm thinking of the NAACP, and I would never think to, you know about the Urban League, but you don't really think about that. So what was your experience? Because you were there.
Correct. So for those that don't know, when I was in Houston, I briefly was a part of the Houston YP chapter, YP, like the Young Professionals, which is below the actual Urban League. It's for the younger people so that they can go volunteer. And one of their main goals is to get people to vote. So the exact sentiments that you're feeling, they feel. And so people just take different strategies to doing it. And so at a lot of events in Houston, you would catch them going out there to try to get people to vote. But like I said, I was there briefly. Now that I'm in Richmond, I'm actually on the actual team, not just, a member. Now I'm actually a part of the team. My goal is to bring as much funding as I can to the Richmond YP chapter. And so through that, I'm learning, their pillars, one of their pillars are to defeat poverty. And I was like, I'm a CPA. This is perfect. I've been studying money for so long. I can raise money, but I can also teach them about how money is evolving.
Yeah.
And I've been talking both to the Houston chapter as well as to the Richmond chapter about Bitcoin and the evolution of money. I will say in Houston, they gravitated towards it a little bit more, especially Precious Azari. She gravitated towards it pretty quickly. She's actually giving a presentation on her experiences with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So big shout outs to Precious.
Shout out to Precious.
Yeah, shout outs to Precious. But in Richmond, it's kind of been like, that's not what I'm hearing from the top dogs. And it's like, well, you don't know who I am. And it's not like an ego thing.
Yeah.
It's just more like in this crypto space, there's not many people like me. If
No.
there's anybody else like
There's
me.
not. You're the first crypto CPA that I've known, and I was looking. And then it was crazy that once I got here to Seattle, I started meeting a couple more people, right? But to see people, CPAs who have like dedicate themselves to crypto, don't see it. Then on top of that, you're a black man that's a crypto CPA, right? So seeing that, the only other black CPA that I can think of is Crypto Kinsey.
And he's studying for a CPA.
You see what I mean?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
so thank you. So right
Correct,
then and
correct.
there,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, so let me say accountant.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So now to see you and to be in a room, and if I'm hearing you correctly, it's almost like y'all really don't know who I am.
Correct.
You really don't
Correct.
understand like who's really in the building with you right now. I'm
Correct.
not just some regular person that's here, like, because you're respected in the industry, you know what I mean? Respected in the industry, you're known in our industry, and I'm not just saying in the black crypto circles, I'm talking about the greater crypto circles and the industry as a whole. So, I'm sorry, I just got triggered.
No,
Go ahead.
that's that same triggers I felt. Because
Gotcha.
like I'm trying to explain this to you, money's evolving. And so I went to this event, it was a convention down in New Orleans. And it was the same exact time as the Bitcoin conference, the same day, literally the same exact moments. And I was like, wow, Trump's about to be presenting in about an hour. And not one person that I've listened to has talked about Bitcoin. The goal is to defeat poverty, right? That is one of the pillars. That is one of the things they talk about all the time is defeating poverty. So along with voting, along with housing, along with the other multiple things that they do, defeating poverty is one of their main goals. But nobody's talking about how money is evolving. Nobody's talking about Bitcoin. And I'm just like, well, this is
Real world asset tokenization.
correct, nothing. And I'm like, this is the moment. And so I asked a question. I basically said, so if defeating poverty is one of the main goals, why aren't we talking about the evolution of money? Why aren't we talking about Bitcoin? Have we talked about central bank digital currencies? And the president of the National Urban League, he basically said, well, we need people like you to teach us about this stuff. A couple other people on stage, they were saying the same thing. Nobody's talking about it. And we have about 3,000 to 4,000 people in that room. On top of it, we got people that are streaming online, and there's a YouTube channel and people are continuously watching, and nobody's talking about it. And literally, I said Trump as well as RFK, two of the three presidential candidates are speaking about Bitcoin currently, right now, at the Bitcoin conference. For the first time, a major political party candidate in Trump is speaking, and he is literally he's championing Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Does he know everything? No. Does he say everything accurate? No. But he's championing it. And we don't know Kamala's stance. We saw that Biden was against it.
Yep.
And I've been trying to explain, I'm part of a group called the Black Bitcoin Billionaires. We have 160,000 people, majority black, and the vast majority are one issue voters, because we understand that money has been the biggest tool for oppression in this country since the beginning, because originally we were the money. Think about it. They took us from Africa. We were the money. They said, hey, go to work. They sold us. We were the money.
We were greater than money.
We were greater than money because we actually did work.
We were the income producing asset.
Correct.
That could be, the asset itself could be sold for value.
Correct.
And the assets had utilitarian value in and of itself. That's crazy.
Correct. And so now we have the ability to get this asset before everybody else. Like we could front run this asset. And if you've ever read the book called Bitcoin and Black America by Isaiah Jackson, like I'm seeing this and I'm like, so the goal is to defeat poverty, and we're not talking about Bitcoin, the best asset class over the last 14 years in history. Think about the first transaction with Bitcoin was 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoins. one Bitcoin today is worth about $58,000. 58, 60, 65. It goes up and down. But to have 10,000 Bitcoins for 2 pizzas now just sounds completely insane. So that wasn't that long ago. So it's one of those things where why aren't we teaching people about this? And the reception that I got, what I received was, don't give up on us. Like, we'll listen eventually. We'll come around. But it's like this. Not one person has reached back out to me. Not one person has done a real follow-up. A couple people may have said, hey, let's talk later. But not one person is like, hey, I really want to learn. And it bothers me because I chose to not go to the Bitcoin conference, to go to the National Urban League conference, to warn them, to ring that bell. And it feels though it's gone on deaf ears. I hope it hasn't. I hope they did their own research, and I hope I planted some seeds. But how it feels is, like you said, if it's a bougie culture and they just don't want to listen to me, I don't know if they see me as bougie. I don't know if they see me as street. I don't know if they see me as a CPA. I'm not sure. Or maybe they just need to be told from the higher ups. But either way, I went directly to the higher ups. I just haven't heard any response.
Bruh, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it for you. I'm gonna say it for you. This is one of the reasons why Black organizations are not growing at the rate that people feel that they should. This is why Black organizations like the NAACP, like the Urban League, are in dire straits because they are not keeping up with the times. And when they are not keeping up with the times, they make themselves irrelevant. I was talking to the NAACP about becoming a data organization in 2020.
Yeah. Wow.
Becoming a data organization in 2020. You want to know why Trump? You want to know one of the reasons why Trump is up talking about Bitcoin in 2024?
Talk to me.
Because of my meeting that I had with him in 2022.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Look, for those that don't know, right? My guy, Dr. Jamar Montgomery, there was a meeting with President Trump, Kanye West, Nick Fuentes, and Dr. Jamar Montgomery. Yep. Talk to us about that meeting, because I feel as though the conversation in there is probably priceless. What happened in there?
Bruh, we can get more detailed into that a little later, but I'll put it like this. Trump asked me a few things during that time. He was asking about my political career, asking about what it is that I did, and I told him I'm in blockchain and crypto, and that we should really be focusing on not just CBDCs, but looking at how Bitcoin and crypto can be utilized in under-resourced communities, right? How this was a tool for financial empowerment, how learning how to code in blockchain is important not only for Black people, but for the nation in general, and how China is beating, China and Hong Kong, Asia in general, is just leaps and bounds ahead of the United States when it comes to development of AI and blockchain, right? Those are conversations that I had with President Trump. So it's funny to see, a year later, he puts out an NFT sneakers, right?
Yeah,
I would have loved to have been part of that team, President Trump.
For real.
You was mad at Kanye. Why did it have to,
right?
Why you have to be mad at me? I mean, I talked about HBCUs. So the conversation was around like HBCUs, making sure that HBCUs were geared up for blockchain and crypto. Mind you, I've been talking about blockchain crypto, at least at Southern University, since 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
I was at a reparations conference in 2017 talking about blockchain, crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, talking about this, right? So one of the things that makes me angry when dealing with Black organizations is that they have greatness in their midst, but ignore them, right? And it's our fault. It's me and you fault, right? It's our fault for not calling them out on it.
Okay.
Why? Are we worried about gaining favor with these particular organizations, or are we worried about making sure that our people have the information? You make sure that the people have the information.
Correct.
Right? And it's their responsibility to get that information out. I feel like they're failing on that responsibility. If your goal is to end poverty and you're not involved in blockchain and crypto, in the words of the great emotional Roland S. Martin, if you're having a conversation in America and you ain't talking about money, then you ain't having an American conversation.
True.
That's another person I pissed off, Roland Martin.
How you piss him off?
I was talking about how he was caping for the Democratic Party.
Oh yeah, I understand.
And, then he went and looked me up and was like, oh, you mean the same Jamar Montgomery that got his license taken and only had 5,485 votes? And, your campaign was a joke. And I was like, oh, you looked me up.
Yeah. That's 5,000 more votes than he ever had.
Thank you. Right. So what I'm saying, bro, is you went and you put your people, you put your purpose above your own personal wants and, your own personal wants. Like to be able to go see President Trump speak.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Talking about the first presidential candidate to be talking about pro-Bitcoin on stage at Bitcoin 2024. That is huge. Enormous. And for you to be at the Urban League and nobody really, and mind you, of course they got a lot of different priorities, but bruh, like for someone like you and you're the only person talking about it, and then they're not, once again, here it is, 5 years later, when you're a deca millionaire and the Urban League asks you to come and speak, you'll be able to say everybody in this room 5 years ago could at least had a couple $100,000 right now. Correct. If your leadership would have taken me seriously and would have heeded my words and actually did more research. So the reason why you're poor or the reason why you're in financial straits right now is because of poor leadership.
I wish it wouldn't have to come to that.
The only way it's not going to come to that is if you press the issue. And a lot of times for men like ourselves is that we're trying to follow protocol. We're trying to utilize a level of tact, right? But who cares about protocol when if money is being utilized to oppress you, then it's going to take money, knowledge, and time in order for you to become free.
Yeah, very true.
You ain't putting no money, trying to give you the knowledge so that you could compound it over time so that you can make some money, but you're not even taking it. I used to take a more measured approach in some of those things because I'm thinking, hey, this is how you're going to get things done. But in the world that we live in, if you're not loud with your own people, they're not going to hear you. And I'll give an example of that. Name me the top 5 most influential people in Black culture right now, outside of an artist or rapper, or influential voices in America right now.
Definitely Obama.
Go ahead.
Maybe Ben Crump.
Go ahead.
He's definitely one of the main people. You got Kamala Harris.
Go ahead.
I would say Tim Scott, but I don't think people would agree with me.
Go ahead.
Then I would say probably Cory Booker.
Okay. Yeah. Right. All those 5 people that you named are politicians.
Correct.
Okay. Do any of those people need your saving?
No.
All right. Charleston White.
Yeah. Okay.
Joe Budden.
Yeah.
I'll maybe say some of the brothers on EYL. I could put them up there. EYL. Anyways.
Earn your leisure for y'all.
Earn your leisure. Earn your leisure. Once again, I wish y'all should have came to see my talk at Davos. But that's a conversation for another time. Charleston White, Joe Budden, EYL. So that's 2 brothers, right? Roland Martin.
Okay.
I'll say that those probably the loudest, more kind of influence when they say something, people listen.
Okay.
Right? Only 2 out of those 5, only 2 of those people are talking about anything closely related to Bitcoin, talking about crypto. But when they say things, the culture moves.
Definitely when Charleston White, he talks and people go crazy.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that what Charleston White's approach is getting people's attention.
And it used to be,
community activists.
yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, yeah, you get tired of you sitting over here trying to go about it in this particular way and your people ain't listening. So guess what you do? You go to what your people will listen to. That's what I'm saying to you.
Is that why Ye goes, he goes, I don't know what you call it, but he just does his thing.
Ye just says what's on his mind, and because Ye says what's on his mind, and because he's so authentic with it, it resonates. It's almost like Ye says your inner thoughts that you feel are too bad to say out loud. He uses the inside voice outside. Right? He uses the voice inside your head, and it actually comes out, and then it's like, huh, that sounded a little different. And then he'll repeat it. You know what I mean? But I get it. But the thing, that's a freedom, right? That's a freedom. And so being loud about Bitcoin, why are we loud about Bitcoin? Why are we loud about crypto, right?
Yeah.
Because it's freedom.
Correct.
It's freedom. The moment, bruh, when I tell you that in 2020, I had a job as a public defender, and the moment that I lost my law license, the next day I could not work.
Wow. How'd that feel?
Devastating.
Yeah.
Devastating. It was devastating because I got this email from the Supreme Court of Louisiana saying here was this order of, your license to practice law has been revoked. And I'm like, yo, like that was the only income that I had as a public defender.
Yeah.
And then like 12 hours of receiving that email, I was on the news.
Wow. What were they saying on the news?
U.S. Senate candidate Jamar Montgomery loses law license revoked. Now, mind you, that's not something that's like out there.
Mm-hmm.
So the only way that you would know is if you were waiting, or if somebody,
Yeah. Because it's not breaking.
That's how dirty politics is.
Yeah. Somebody probably pushed the button.
That's how dirty politics is, right?
Yeah.
So the only thing that I had was crypto.
Wow. I get that.
The only thing that I had was crypto. When I didn't have any income, right? It was crypto that saved me.
Yeah.
It was crypto that allowed me to buy my car when I was borrowing my partner's car.
Yeah.
It was a 2005 Hyundai Sonata.
Yeah. I got a similar story.
So, you know what I mean? Like, for me, and telling people, like, look, crypto saved my life, bruh.
Yeah.
Like, this is life-changing. Like, investments I made 5 years prior, finally, like, bruh.
Yeah. It is life and you leave with a smile. Not even leave, but you grow with it as a smile, because it's funny you had mentioned that. So this is my first tour around the country with my car, and literally it broke down as I was driving into the parking lot to get back home. So I was grateful to God. I was like, thank you, God, I actually made it back home.
Yeah.
Thanks, I was able to park. I was just grateful.
But shout out to Yeshua HaMashiach.
But like, that car didn't move ever again. Like, I couldn't drive it ever again. I started using my homeboy's car. His car broke down. So I started using his brother's car. His brother's car broke down. So you had 3 grown men. All 3 of our cars broke down, and we were walking everywhere, taking the buses.
Yeah.
We were prayed up. We were thanking God every day. We were grateful. But then I was in the crypto, and lo and behold, it starts doing its thing just a little bit more. By 2020, I'm like, wow, that the little bit of money that I got from that was the PPP and the EIDL and all that. Lo and behold, now not only can I buy a car cash, but now I can invest into my clothing line business. Shout out to Smart Guy Clothing. Make sure you guys pick up those hoodies and those t-shirts. But I was able to build Smart Guy Taxes, Smart Guy Consulting, Smart Guy Communications from selling the clothes that came directly from both the Bitcoin, the crypto, and those 2 like government issued, I guess, loans Yeah, because the PPP was forgiven. The EIDL, you still got to pay back. So,
which is whack.
hey,
I sure would have went after the PPP if I would have known that it was going to be forgiven. I thought the EIDL was going to be forgiven, but
nah, PPP was forgiven. And yeah, that whole time period was wild. But Bitcoin, crypto definitely changed my life, especially in 2020.
yep,
Because once BBB came around, Black Bitcoin Billionaires, we just all grew together,
yep.
put that into the business, and I've been good ever since.
That's a blessing, man. Yeah, that's a blessing. So, Brad, I know we talked about your time at the Urban League, and it's just kind of outlining some of our challenges that we've had with being advocates in crypto. Um, I guess do you have any final thoughts? Any final thoughts? Any reflections on our conversation?
I hope that we're wrong. I hope that they are just researching things, and I hope that they reach out to me later, not 5 years later, but like, maybe 5 days. I hope that the tours that I've done, I've sowed enough seeds, and maybe I do need to be a little bit more loud. I feel as though CPAs are typically not the loudest ones in the room. CPAs are typically not loud at all. And so it kind of goes against the introvert profession of being a CPA and trying to be loud. However, sometimes you've got to play both roles when you're trying to make something happen. And so I'm definitely going to take what you said and be louder. I'm definitely going to push the line a lot more. And I'm going to continue to go to conferences. I will be at Earn Your Leisure, Invest Fest.
Shout out to Invest Fest.
Yeah, for sure. So I just want to continue to be an advocate for Bitcoin. I hope more Black Americans get into it, and not from a perspective of getting rich quick, but from a generational wealth perspective and freedom perspective. You mentioned it. Bitcoin is freedom. It's freedom money. You own your private keys. You can transact anywhere around the world with anybody for a small fee and no middleman controlling it. That's like when I learned about Bitcoin before, but it wasn't until the banks closed my account in 2019 that I was like, oh, Bitcoin is freedom money. Before, I was just looking at it like it's money and I'm trying to make more US dollars with it. And that was the moment I realized the power with it, where it was like, you can shut down my US bank account for no reason. They never told me why. I did not overdraft. They never told me why. But Bitcoin, they can't do that if you're on your private keys.
Yep.
So my thoughts are, hey, I just got to get louder. I appreciate the insight and I appreciate the confidence, and I'm just going to keep doing my thing.
Most def. My final thoughts, I've been saying it since 2017. Wealth creation is the new civil rights movement. Point blank, period. If you do not have money, you are irrelevant in this capitalistic society. Wealth creation is the new civil rights movement, meaning having the right to own your money, having the right to transact with your money, having the right to create and generate your own money. That is the new civil rights movement, and that's what we should be focused on. All this other stuff, hey, you got to pick your issues, what hills you're going to die on. I know for me that it is that you can die from starvation, and you're starving because you're poor. I don't want people to be poor anymore. That's my thoughts.
Get you some Bitcoin.
Get you some crypto.
Yeah.
If you don't get some crypto, your great grannies, you know what?
But that's what your generation, that's what your grandkids gonna be. They're gonna be thinking, how did you not get any? You didn't get any of it? Like none?
Hey, you gonna be sitting there, well, baby, back in that.
But you know who told you? Dr. Jamar Montgomery.
You know who else told him?
Who?
CJ, the smart guy.
Yeah.
Bruh,
Yeah.
this was good.
Yeah. Most definitely.